You want me to put that on my todger?
Harry's wife. They want to silence you. Hello, I'm HG Tudor. Harry's wife doesn't like what you have to say about her. Harry's wife doesn't like what Piers Morgan has to say about her, or Jeremy Clarkson, or Hilary Rose, or Meghan Kelly, or any number of sensible and professional broadcasters who've spent a long time in their career examining behaviour and reporting upon it. Now, of course, we know that individuals such as Piers Morgan and Tucker Carlson are in effect rent-a-gobs, that they are there in order to portray a particular narrative. But that doesn't mean that they're necessarily wrong when it comes to their examination of Harry's wife. And of course, Piers Morgan, for a long time, at least on an international level, was a lone voice with regard to describing the poor behaviours of Harry's wife. And of course, what happened to him? When he, rightly and with justification, stated that he wouldn't trust Harry's wife to read him the weather, or words to that effect, and he labelled her as Princess Pinocchio some 2 years ago, he found himself essentially losing his job because he wouldn't apologise to her. What his comments were viewed by her through her narcissistic lens as being a threat to control. Of course, as an unaware narcissist, she did not think to herself, "Oh, Piers Morgan is threatening my control. Therefore, I need to do something to nullify that control. What could I do? I know. I will write a letter to the relevant organisation demanding that he apologise to me, and if he fails to do so, he ought to be sacked." No, instead, her narcissism caused her to think, why would anybody say that about delightful old me? I'm eminently likeable. He is just bitter and twisted because we were once friends and he tried to hit on me, but I knocked him back because he's not my type. And of course, her narcissism tells her that as the justification for being hurt, for portraying him as being the malicious one, to try to suggest that he has some form of obsession with her, so that then her complaint about him is justified. But what did she do? She sought to silence him, in the same way that Jeremy Clarkson expressed his view and opinion. Some would say accurately, others would say somewhat clumsily. But once again, because Harry's wife is one that operates a facade, her narcissism tells her, people can't talk about you like that, that's horrible and it's hurtful, feel upset. So she then throws herself to the floor and sobs. As you know from my work, there are other narcissists who love it. They love the aggro, they love the drama. These are the highly provocative narcissists who don't care, don't get upset as a consequence of being lambasted. They love the attention. Any attention is good for them. Of course, it's still challenge fuel, but they're able to dismiss it very easily. I've given you the examples of a Premiership footballer who slams home another goal in front of the way end and stands there goading them. He's being called all sorts, being given dog's abuse. His parentage is being questioned, he's being told that he's a self-abuser, there's plenty of hand gestures, and there's a baying mob of twisted, stroppy, pasty faces, showing exactly what they think about him. But he loves every second of it. Why? Because although they're threatening his sense of control, he's easily able to assert that control because he's just scored against them, and in his head, he can tell himself, I'm the one earning millions for running around on a pitch, and then I'll go back and bang a model. You lot of ugly fuckers are stuck behind that fence or behind those seats. You're not going to come and get me. And you're all just envious of me. You'd love to be me. You'd love it. And thus, that particular highly provocative narcissist, and you find them in politics, you find them in entertainment as well, where they play up to a particular image, love the controversy. They love the negative reactions that they receive. And whilst they still are a challenge, they dismiss that challenge very quickly. Harry's wife doesn't fall within that category. She feels particularly threatened by any form of criticism. Look at the reaction that occurred only recently as a consequence of what was being stated about the fall of the Silicon Valley Bank and how that impacted upon her finances. Newsweek, as I covered in parts passing, was then instructed to counter this. She can't stand being criticised. She can't stand being thought of as not being the brilliant, marvellous Harry's wife. And therefore, each and every time she is criticised, her narcissism tells her, they're not allowed to say that about you. You're wonderful, sweet, amazing and fragrant. Your kindness personified. You must now do something about these hateful individuals. As part of that assertion of control, and remember, she has a vast array of manipulations that are used, one of her favoured go-to ones is to nullify that threat to control by silencing people, by shutting them up, by basically curtailing your freedom of speech. And of course, files that have recently been released by Elon Musk demonstrate that Harry and Harry's wife want to curtail your freedom of speech on the internet. Those files that have been exposed show the censorship industrial complex. And basically, somebody called Matt Taibbi has unearthed that Harry, and obviously at the orchestration of his wife, because everything that he does is orchestrated by his wife, he joined the Aspen Institute to bring about the censorship of Americans on Twitter. You see, Twitter is quite a toxic environment, although there is a lot of information there that's entirely accurate, but it's certainly a place where you can wade in and have a real old bun fight with people if you so choose. There are a lot of people operating with fierce opinions, many narcissists lurking there, of course, others who just get hurt by the fact that somebody's arguing with them and they can't see that basically it's a narcissist acting as a wind-up merchant. It's populated by lots of trolls, not all of which are narcissists. Watch my video, The Online Troll, to understand where those people come from. But Harry and Harry's wife want to shut you up. You're the little people. You're not meant to have a voice. You're only allowed a voice when it accords with what she wants. Her narcissism causes her to believe that she's always right, that hers is the only opinion that matters. And therefore, Harry has been cajoled into joining the Aspen Institute's Commission on Information Disorder. That organisation includes Dr. Sophia Umoja Noble of the UCLA Centre for Critical Internet Inquiry. Now, you might remember that name from a little while ago. Why is that? Well, she received $100,000 courtesy of Archwell and NAACP. And therefore, that individual was putting forward a book which was basically about internet bullying, etc., and the provision of misinformation and disinformation. What has to be remembered that with Harry and Harry's wife, their view of what is disinformation is coloured by her narcissistic perspective and him going along with whatever she says. It isn't done objectively. It's done because she needs that to control. And when your view contradicts her, and it will, because often you're using the objectively obtained majority perspective facts, that means that you're a threat to control. And rather than recognise, well, freedom of expression, people are allowed to express their views. Even if I don't agree with them, they should be allowed to express them. I'll just get on with it. Or, in some instances, I will actually seek to demonstrate this person is incorrect by the use of evidence. Of course, that's too much like hard work for Harry's wife. Using actual evidence, using your brain, far easier just to have somebody shut down because you disagree with them. We see this repeatedly, don't we, through social media, on both sides of the political divide, but especially, darling, amongst those who are holding themselves out as the protectors of inclusivity, fairness and tolerance, whose stance is quite simply this: I believe fully in the expression of speech and view and opinion, so long as it matches mine. If it doesn't, I'll cancel you. And here, Harry, being part of this taxpayer-funded institute, basically laid out some conclusions concerning censorship. It supports the government's censorship of false information, even if it actually means losing freedom to access and publish content. The fact that the US government has been involved in funding this, and funding something which will actually be precisely what Harry's wife wants, really ought to be an alarm bell for many of you listening. The fact that they have involvement via Harry and the Aspen Institute Commission on Information Disorder means that Harry's wife has access to a tool, through a tool, to nullify threat to control by attacking the principle of freedom of speech. And we see the cast that's involved in them. For instance, Renée de Rusta is a key player. Harry participated in a panel with her in November 2021. Also mentioned, of course, Dr. Noble and the way that they've cozied up to her. They want you silenced. Their involvement with this institution is part of doing that. Harry's wife doesn't want you criticising her across the internet. She wants you shut down. And this is one of the means that her narcissism is compelling her to try and achieve it. And you ought to be alarmed by this. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.